I was graciously given a key for the upcoming survival horror game Ground Zero. Quick caveat though, I was given this key a little bit late. Totally my bad. But that means I did not get to finish this game in time for the embargo. So just let that be a known caveat. I've seen a good chunk of the game. I'm on chapter 5. There's at least 10 chapters, so I'm like roughly halfway through the main campaign. But I feel like I've seen enough of the game to give like my thoughts and feelings on it. But just know that this is not a review. This is an impressions video, if anything. So what is Ground Zero? Ground Zero is a retro throwback survival horror game with fixed cameras, pre-rendered backgrounds, zombies, limited ammo, item boxes, the works. In the game, you were investigating a meteorite that hit a town in South Korea, and you were being sent there to investigate and try to stop the infection before it spreads to more of the world and potentially kill everybody. So what did I think of Ground Zero? I think overall, generally speaking, it's very good. As a classic survival horror sicko, there have been a lot of resurgence in this genre, especially in the past like 5-6 years, and they all seem to be taking direct inspiration from Resident Evil and Silent Hill. That being said, for the amount of games that have come up in that time that take inspiration from those two games, I don't think many have been essential. I think Elisa, Crow Country, My Friendly Neighborhood, and Signalis are the best that the genre has had in the past 5 or 6 years, with Signalis by far being the best one. And I think if Ground Zero maintains its pace and its quality from where I'm at until the end of the game, I do think I would put it up there with those other games. There is a huge caveat, what I'll get to in a little bit, but if you just want my quick opinion, it's a good game, but only for survival horror sickos. I'll get to why in a second. The controls feel great. I do think that the original Resident Evil games are tighter feeling than Ground Zero is, especially because in Ground Zero you can move and aim, and also you can free aim. Those sound good on paper for a fixed camera survival horror game, but I do think that those innovations do give way to a little bit more finicky wiggle room that the original games in the Resident Evil franchise just didn't allow. Simply just aiming up, down, and straight, and being forced to stay in position meant that like every decision was super deliberate. There was very little margin for error. And Ground Zero kind of works with that a little bit. I mean, I guess you could say that that's kind of like the point because it makes combat a little bit trickier. I do just kind of prefer the more locked down style that the original Resident Evil games have. There's a couple of neat little innovations, like the previously mentioned, like aiming and shooting and free aiming, but there is a mechanic in the game that I do think is absolutely genius, and it's a critical hit system. In Ground Zero, when you aim at an enemy, you can hold the A button, at least on controller. And if you hold the A button, your character will kind of like do a little animation that just kind of it implies that they're like focusing their aim. And then a little bar will come up that's very similar to the Gears of War reload mechanic. If you let go of the A button in a very specific spot on this little slider, you essentially one-shot any enemy that's not like a boss or like a really tough enemy. And I think what Ground Zero deserves a bunch of accolades for in this regard is that you would think that would trivialize the horror, or that would trivialize the combat. Because if you could one-shot anything, then like what's the point of conserving ammo? What's the point of worrying about dying? I think what helps it feel as good as it does is the simple fact that like if you are far enough away from an enemy, you do get the very satisfying feeling of like, I'm just going to one-shot this thing, it's no big deal. But if you miss for whatever reason, like you will still shoot, you will just deal normal damage, which 9 times out of 10 won't kill the enemy. And then after that, they will start beelining it towards you. So you more or less get one chance to get the critical off, and if you don't, you get seriously punished for it. There's even this like awesome mechanic. I can't believe I forgot this. There's this awesome mechanic where like In doing so, you collect genome samples from like all of the enemies that you defeat, or you don't have to. It's like a whole separate thing. You kill an enemy, you scan them, you collect their genomes, and then you send that to your HQ, and then your HQ in turn will give you like upgraded weapons or just ammo or healing items, stuff like that. But like there are different tiers of quality of the genomes that you send. And the way that this works is that, like, the stronger the weapon that you have, the worse quality the genome sample that you send will be, meaning that you get less points for each sample that you collect. So ideally, if you want to collect as much genome samples as possible, you go knife mode. It's perfect. You get a perfect every single time you kill an enemy with a knife. Really subtle, but, like, really, really great. I wouldn't mind more horror games picking up on this kind of idea and using it in future games. It also gives you a defensive option in a dash, which I think is really effective. You have like an invisible stamina meter, but like generally speaking, you get 3 dashes, and then you kind of have to like wait a minute before you can dash again. But if you can nail the timing of that, you're golden. It's definitely not going to get you back in range of another critical if they're already running at you, but it will definitely get you enough range to either run away or at least get another couple normal shots off. There's also a really cool like puzzle system involving the item box, which I think is kind of brilliant, where you have to essentially solve like a math puzzle in order to even open the item box. And if you're groaning at like having to solve math problems, there is a system in place where you can essentially blow up the lock and bypass the math puzzle altogether. But each item box has a very specific item in it that you earn from solving the puzzle. And if you blow up the lock and bypass the puzzle, you don't get that item. The puzzles themselves, being a survival horror game, are pretty important, if you ask me. And thankfully, while they're not like groundbreaking or revolutionary puzzles, they are just incredibly solid survival horror puzzles. I basically have no notes on the puzzles. All of them have been very solid. All of them have been very good. One in particular in the basement of the hospital, where you have to like get the power system working again, was absolutely fantastic. And oh my god, a modern survival horror game with actual genuine backtracking, I can't believe it. Resident Evil could never. It's sort of, from what I can tell, it seems very much akin to how Resident Evil 3 specifically utilizes its level design, where like you will be kind of like navigating like something relatively linear, and then you'll stumble upon an area that's like a big puzzle box, or at least a larger area that has puzzle box elements. I've gone through parts of a city and then gone into like a big city puzzle box, and then I went through part of a city and then got to a gigantic hospital puzzle box. And there's multiple pathways, which incentivizes multiple playthroughs. Right from the start, you choose between either amusement park or like a dock, and then you can choose between the hospital or a police station. I'm super interested to see how many variations there are and how different each opposing area that you can enter actually is. This game demands multiple playthroughs, even just to see if there's different things that you can unlock by interweaving places you have been and places you haven't been. I'm super excited to go through this game fully at least 2.5 times. I'm not even kidding. I think as a retro survival horror throwback, I think generally speaking, it's everything you want it to be. I do have a couple nitpicks, like very minor nitpicks. Like I hate navigating the menu. Opening your map is something that you're going to be doing a lot in this game, and in order to do so, you have 2 ways to do it. You can either hold the select button for an indeterminate amount of time and then let go and it'll open your map, which is annoying, but I guess it works. Or you hit select and then you hit RB twice, and then that opens your map. Please just give me a fucking map button. Having to hit 3 buttons to open the map every single time I want to open the map, it drives me insane. Having no VSync is insane. The last nitpick, bordering on an outright criticism, is that you cannot cycle maps in a dungeon. I was in the hospital for 2 to 3 hours, and there are 4 floors to that hospital. And if you want to navigate the map to see if you missed anything, you have to go back to that floor to look at that level's map. Unbelievably annoying. It was so frustrating, and that leads into the big caveat. The big caveat is that, like, up until the hospital, I was over the moon with this game. I think in the past 6 years, we've only gotten a handful of, like, really high-quality retro survival horror throwbacks, despite there being a lot of them. And I think that Ground Zero could be right up there with them as some of the best retro throwback survival horror games. But I think that this game does something in the hospital that not only is unforgivable, but is something that is so easily fixable that, like, I cannot believe that at some point during development, it wasn't tweaked even a little bit. If I wasn't reviewing this game or giving my impressions on this game, I almost assuredly would have stopped playing. So what is the problem? In the hospital, you find this enemy, and this enemy is invincible. That's fine. I don't mind an invincible enemy. Mr. X is an invincible enemy, at least up until a certain point, but that's okay. They don't tell you that this thing is invincible. You have to find out the hard way. A little frustrating, sure, but again, not the end of the world. I think the thing that, like, pushes it over the edge from being just kind of, like, at worst mildly frustrating to a problem is that it will one-shot you. If it grabs you, it's just over. You die. Now, those three things alone would be really annoying. They would be frustrating, and I could see somebody, especially with not a lot of survival horror experience, putting the game down. The craziest thing is that it gets worse. Not only does this thing kill you in one hit, is invincible, it will teleport throughout the entire hospital, basically making every single room in the hospital a death trap. And this means that there are rooms in the hospital that are inaccessible until this guy starts chasing you that are filled with enemies. So, like, not only do you walk into rooms filled with enemies, which in a hospital are not that big, so that's already very difficult. But now on top of that, you have this unstoppable killing machine just beelining it towards you the entire time. There's almost no reprieve. You get at most 2 rooms away from this thing, and then he teleports in front of you. It's unbelievable how much fun was sucked out of this game to the point where only the most hardcore classic survival horror sickos will ever put up with something like that. And if that's what they were going for, I even still think that it's too frustrating. There's so many things that you can do to fix this, and I cannot believe at least one of them were not implemented. But once you get past that, the game is good again. It's so good. When it's just being a traditional survival horror game, it's immaculate. It's one of the best games in the genre that has come out in so long. It's such a good game. It's fantastic. And I want to recommend this wholeheartedly to people that love this genre. If you're a survival horror sicko, I completely say just get this. It does so much right. At the very least, knowing ahead of time what that guy is capable of probably puts you at a significant advantage to what I was at. And I think that if you're a hardcore sicko survival horror guy or gal, you will fuck with this game heavy, because I fuck with this game so heavy. It's beautiful to look at. It's so much fun to explore and solve puzzles. So many survival horror games nowadays kind of give you the illusion that you can that you shouldn't kill every enemy that you come across, but like Ground Zero reminds you that you can't. If you try to kill even a lot of the enemies that you come across, even some of them, you are fucked. You have so little ammo almost the entire time. It is such a breath of fresh air in this genre that I feel like is becoming so stagnant. I think revisiting the difficulty of those old games and leaning into that difficulty is a smart decision to make the genre still feel new, to still feel refreshing. I just think that hospital is even too far for that. If you're a survival horror sicko, just get this game. It's really, really good. Love your face, love your show. Thanks for watching.
Tomato is a fruit, but it's also a vegetable.